For a second night in a row, violent confrontations broke out in Lebanon between police and protesters. Hundreds of people have been wounded this weekend. Lebanese security forces fired water cannons, rubber bullets, and tear gas on Sunday in attempts to break up stone-throwing protesters in Beirut. Unrest in the capital has ramped up this week as the public continues to feel the results of the dual political and economic crises. For the latest, let's cross to our correspondent in Beirut, Molana-Allen. Layla, you've been out in the streets all day. Tell us what you've seen.
I have. Tonight, a thunderstorm in Beirut has managed to do what the security forces couldn't and finally cleared the protesters from the area behind me. But from late afternoon, protesters gathered here again today as they had done yesterday. They said they would come back. They said they wouldn't be cowed by the violence that we saw yesterday. And they weren't. Hundreds of people took to the street behind me, which is one of the entrances to the square where Parliament sits, shouting slogans against all of the government members, including the Interior Minister, Raya Hassan, who they hold responsible for the way that security forces have been retaliating against protesters this week. We saw lots and lots of injuries. A final count tonight from the Lebanese Red Cross, 45 people transported to hospital, over 100 injured people treated at the scene here in downtown Beirut. Lots of rioting tonight. We saw people tearing stones off the walls of the upmarket Beirut Souk shopping centre just behind me and using those as missiles to throw at the security forces. Water cannon used almost immediately as protests started in the late afternoon here. Rubber bullets as well, and continuous volleys of tear gas. The air was thick with it tonight, and one of the problems we've been seeing tonight, as we saw yesterday, is the direct firing of tear gas at a direct angle in a straight line, in which case the actual canisters become a weapon themselves. That is illegal under international law, and lots of instances of that yesterday and today. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty looking into that as it could be a violation. So many injuries, lots of bloody facial injuries we're seeing as a result of those tear gas canisters and also rubber bullets fired at close range tonight.
Layla, these protests have been going on for months, on and off. So why the escalation now, and who is behind it?
They have absolutely been continuous for 3 months. It's just that we've seen smaller pockets on some days, particularly over the Christmas and New Year period, when things calmed down a bit. And last week was the first full week back at work for people here. And they said from Tuesday, protesters, they were going to launch a week of wrath against the government, or the failed government, the fact that one has not been appointed since the 29th of October, when the Prime Minister Saad Hariri resigned. Finally, on the 17th of December, there was a new Prime Minister assigned, nominated by the Parliament, Hassan Diab. He said that he would have a new cabinet together within a month. That fell on Friday, and that failed again. The other thing that's happening is this escalating economic crisis in the country, where banks are limiting the amount of money people can take out, people also losing their jobs. They cannot afford to pay for daily necessities, they can't pay their rent, and what they see is the Parliament negotiating, wrangling over power disputes. Who has more power in this new cabinet? While out on the streets, people are suffering. What protesters want is a government made up of specialists who can solve this economic crisis. And then, of course, a huge reaction over the last few days to this escalating violent reaction from the riot police. They weren't reacting this violently before Christmas, but as we've gone into 2020, escalating violence, as we've seen in the last few days. So all those factors compounding. And these are the same people. These are still the same protesters who were protesting in 2019, at the end of 2019, but it's a smaller group, the die-hard, who now say we've kept it peaceful for months. Peaceful protest is not working. The resounding chorus I'm hearing from protesters on the street is, we tried being peaceful. They are bringing violence to us, and the only way is for us to fight back with violence to get what we want and need.
Molana-Allen in Beirut, thank you so much for your reporting on this story.